Namo Vishnu Palaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachamini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachaya Dasatani. So, we will today discuss Canto 4, Chapter 29, verses 41 till 59.
Recording in progress.
So we discuss today Canto 4, Chapter 25, verses 41 till 59. So, Narada Muni is preaching to King Prachinabarisat. King Prachinabarisat was engaged in performing many karma kandiya fruitive activities. His purpose is to attain unending material happiness due to an incredible accumulation of piety. But this is very far from spiritual happiness. This material happiness cannot be compared to spiritual happiness. To attain spiritual happiness, we must give up this attachment to material happiness. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami explains that if one takes to the fullest extent of material happiness and multiplied it even by thousands and thousands, it cannot even compare to a drop of happiness available by Krishna's Brahman realization. Thus, compared to Brahman realization, then if one multiplies the bliss of Brahman realization, and that bliss by millions and millions, it cannot even be compared with a drop of prema bhakti. What is a drop of bhakti? Prema bhakti. A drop of prema bhakti is bhava bhakti. But what to speak of Krishna Prem? Prema Pumartha Mohan, the full manifestation of the soul's natural consciousness. Because that's what we do by practicing Krishna consciousness. We expand our consciousness. And the human form of life gives us this ability or this possibility to expand our consciousness up to the spiritual platform. And in this world, we are trading that for material satisfaction. A material satisfaction which is completely insignificant. Dhruva Maharaj called it pieces of broken glass. They are not worthy. They are not diamonds, he said. So Narada Muni decided to be merciful to all these descendants of Dhruva Maharaj. And King Prachinabarisat is one of his descendants. Also the Prachetas, the sons of King Prachinabarisat. And therefore Narada Muni told King Prachinabarisat that you will suffer so much due to performance of your sacrifices which are meant to accumulate material piety. And then he told them the story of Puranjan. The king who had an ideal life, he had an ideal marriage, but everything turned against him at the end. Every living entity Puranjan. Because every living entity, regardless on how satisfied we are in the cities of our bodies. The body is like a city. No matter how satisfied we are, at the ultimate end, it is crushed to dust. Then we are forced to move on to another body. Puranjan, in his next life, due to his material piety, he got a very good position. He became a queen, a woman, and born in the family of Vaidarbha. She married a very powerful king, Malayadvarj. In all these pastimes there are allegories, philosophical points that are made. Malayadvarj was a devotee, and his wife became a great devotee by his association. He went to the forest and did austerities, and she was lamenting, and the super soul appeared to her, Avihyata, the long-lost friend. He appeared to her that she actually, then she understood, I'm actually not Vaidari. Just imagine that someone came to you and said to you, you think this is you? In your last life, you were this, and before you were that. Which one is you? Actually, none of them are you. They are bodies we accept. Like bodies we accept in a dream. We accept them when we accept these bodies, when we are dreaming, and then we give them up. To be fixed in that consciousness that this isn't me, and to develop attachment to Krishna. This is where the instructions of Sanat Kumar we heard before. The essence of all scriptures are really teaching these two things. Detachment from the body concept of life, and to develop attachment to Krishna. Then after telling the story, King Prajnaparisad said, very nice, but I could not understand it. Please explain everything to me. Then he explains, please understand that you have been transmigrating from one body to the next and the next and the next. Just imagine yourself right now. You are very old and you look in the mirror and the face is staring back at you. And it is unrecognizable. Someone else practically. An old man or an old lady. Then the body dies and you take another body. And then that body gets old and dies. It might be a monkey body or a cow, sometimes a king's body, sometimes an ant's body, a bird's body, sometimes a male, sometimes a female, a beggar, a rich man, a poor man, again and again and again. This is what Narada Muni is explaining to King Prajnaparisad. The only way to get out of this forest of fire of material existence, samsara dava nalalita loka, is through devotional service. So we will hear in this section the preaching of Narada Muni. And his preaching is quite heavy preaching. The question is, can we preach like that? Did Narada Muni always preach like that? No. He preached in various ways. We will discuss that at the end. How to preach according to the audience. So, a few practical points that we remember from last two sections. We spoke about the importance of repentance, that we are repenting but not lamenting. No, we are going to do the right thing. That the importance of humility, chanting with humility, using our difficult situations to call out to Krishna. We heard about the importance of taking shelter of a spiritual master, that and engage in service to please a spiritual master. Especially the importance of chanting and hearing we heard. Now we have text 41, which is on the screen. That's the last section of heavy preaching by Narada Muni. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Etero padruto nityam jivaloka svabhavachai. Nakaroti ahernumam kattam ritanidoratim. Can someone read the translation of the text?
Because the conditioned soul is always disturbed by the bodily necessities such as hunger and thirst, he has very little time to cultivate attachment to hearing the nectarian words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Too much disturbed, no time to hear about Krishna. So, hunger and thirst is a continuous disturbance. That is what it means to be in the material world and having a material body. This is a comment of Bhurijan Prabhu when he spoke on this verse, and he said, Bhurijan Prabhu said, I was reading some years ago that 70% of all people that are 45 years of old and 80% of all who are 50, they already started feeling uncomfortable in their body. Interesting. Uncomfortable means that they are always conscious of one pain or another. There are so many distractions. They distract us as they make us continuously think of our comfort and discomfort. It takes away our ability to hear. It becomes very difficult to get attached to hearing Krishna Katha. There is always something distracting the mind. Very hard, difficult. The Narada Muni tells King Prachinabarisa that because he has been performing so many ritualistic activities based on the Vedic injunctions, but he missed the actual point of the Vedas. Vedasya sarver aham eva vedya. Krishna explains that it is I that has to be known to develop a relationship with Krishna. This is the purpose of the Vedas. This is the most secret of all secrets. This is the most confidential Raja Vidya Raja Guyam. Text 42 till 44. Can someone read the translation?
Hare Krishna.
Please.
Oh, sorry.
Excuse me. The most powerful Lord Brahma, the father of all progenitors, Lord Shiva, Manu, Daksha, and the other rulers of humankind, The four saintly first-class brahmacharis headed by Sanaka and Sanatana, the great sages Marichi, Atri, Angira, Pulastya, Pulaha, Kratu, Brigu, and Vasishtha, and my humble self, Narada, are all stalwart brahmanas who can speak authoritatively on Vedic literature. We are very powerful because of austerities, meditation, and education. Nonetheless, even after inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom we always see, we do not know perfectly about him.
So we are limited in knowing Krishna. These are wonderful personalities mentioned here. And for them, it's very hard to understand Krishna. So, Narada Muni, he wants King Prachinabarisha to give up his attachment for using the Vedas to gain something from material nature. And Krishna said the same thing to Arjuna in the Gita, 2.14.5. Tragunya Visaya Vedanis Tragunya Pavarjuna. Nirtvantvo Nitvasatvasto Niryoga Extema Atmavam. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature, where Arjuna become transcendental to these three modes, be free from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. So, that's, yeah. So one who wants to gain something from material nature, he cannot gain something transcendental. And that is the point made here. Text 45. Samarita translation, please.
Despite the cultivation of Vedic knowledge, which is unlimited, and the worship of different demigods by the symptoms of Vedic mantras, demigod worship does not help one to understand the supreme powerful personality of Godhead.
So why is that? Bhakti amam abhijaniti is known only through devotion. If one truly loves someone, that person becomes trustworthy. He can reveal things. But without devotion, Krishna will not reveal himself, will not explain himself. So Krishna is only known by devotion. So he is discouraging King Prachinabarishat of following the Karma Kandiya section of the Vedas. And now text 46. Can someone read the translation?
When a person is fully engaged in devotional service, he is favored by the Lord, who bestows his causeless mercy. At such a time, the awakened devotee gives up all material activities and ritualistic performances mentioned in the Veda.
So, interesting. Causeless mercy. Causeless mercy means there is no cause. There is nothing that makes it happen. How is it then that causeless? How is it causeless when Krishna gives it when one is fully engaged in devotional service? In logic, there is a term necessary, but not sufficient. So it is not that our devotion is forcing Krishna to bestow his mercy, but it makes Krishna inclined. It's the nature of his compassionate heart. And when Krishna bestows his causeless mercy on someone, then that person gives up all materialistic activities and performances. So there are the tendencies of karma and jnana. Karma and jnana is self-centered. Instead perform devotional service, not just service, but devotional service. Seva, bhakti, love or devotion. Real love, devotion means service. Service means that one wants to please the other. Text 47. So, someone can read, please. Translation.
My dear King Parishma, you should never out of ignorance take to the Vedic rituals or to fruitive activity, which may be pleasing to hear about or which may appear to be the goal of self-interest. You should never take these to be the ultimate goal of life.
It means we should not take anything as worthy other than pure devotion and service to Krishna. Everything else is durasraya. It will not give us what we are longing for. If we have other desires, then we will wander throughout the universe to fulfill those desires. We have to look in our consciousness and see, what do we desire? We can make long lists of all the things that we desire, but it is not worth it. Do we want to wander in the material world, or do we want to go to Krishna? We may decide that we don't want these material desires anymore. We have to decide, I don't want these material desires anymore. These material desires are so stubborn that also bhava bhakti is sudurlabha, because Krishna himself is purchased when we attain bhava bhakti. 48. Yeah. Who wants to read the next verse here? Those.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
Those who are less intelligent accept the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies as all in all. They do not know that the purpose of the Vedas is to understand one's own home, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead lives. Not being interested in their real home, they are illusioned and search after other homes. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, it's direct preaching, I would say. Can someone read also 49, my dear King?
Hare Krishna. My dear King, the entire world is covered with the sharp points of Usha crash, and on the strength of this you have become proud because you have killed various types of animals in sacrifice. Because of your foolishness, you do not know that devotional service is the only way one can please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You cannot understand this fact. Your only activities should be those that can please the Personality of Godhead. Our education should be such that we can become elevated to Krishna consciousness.
So, thank you. In this and the next verses, and Srila Prabhupada's purports, that Srila Prabhupada stresses that our education should be as such that we can be elevated to Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada's movement is an educational institution meant to train people to understand this. That the purpose of life is to elevate one to Krishna consciousness, to teach how to attain Krishna bhakti, teaching on how to come to the platform of tasting our sweet relationship with Krishna. The opulences of a king are palaces, power, armies. And Narada Muni says, you have become proud because of your foolishness. He's insulting him practically. Why? Because he was thinking himself great having performed so many sacrifices. But actually, he had missed the entire point, and Narada Muni wants him to stop these performances of sacrifice and engage in Krishna conscious activities. So in the previous verses, Srila Prabhupada has been quoting this Dadami Buddhiya Yogam Tam Yenamam Upayantite. By engaging in devotional service to Krishna, Krishna gives his devotees the intelligence and the ability, the knowledge, the instruction that will lead to him. Krishna is educating and revealing everything. Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasyam Ritisana Vishti, Matashmitranamapamsa. Krishna will give knowledge. He will give the inspiration. This is the real education when Krishna is telling us what to do. To be in touch with the Super Soul. So this is a question that Vidura asked Maitreya Muni in the 5th chapter of the 3rd canto. How can I get direct instructions from Krishna? So clearly, one has to be very pure to attain this. So now in text 50 and 51, Narada Muni is now going to conclude what he wants the king to do, his final instructions here. Text 50. So one can read the translation 50.
Sri Hari, the Supreme Personality of Sri Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the super soul and guide of all living entities who have accepted material bodies within this world. He is the supreme controller of all material activities in material nature. He is also our best friend, and everyone should take shelter at his lotus feet. In doing so, one's life will be auspicious.
Mm-hmm. So, incidentally, Narada Muni is telling him, you have killed so many animals in a faulty way, and they also have Krishna in their heart. This is cruel, because they have two Krishna, also they have Krishna in their heart. So a wise person actually sees that Krishna is within everyone. In the purport there are 5 verses from Chaitanya Bhagavat that here 5 verses that in these verses of Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur says that education really means to know Krishna. So I will read the quotes here from Chaitanya Bhagavat. Tatari se bali vidya mantra adya. Tatari se bali vidya mantra adyayayan. Krishna pada padmeye karaye stiramana. One who has fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna is to be understood as having the best education and as having studied all the Vedas. There are also other appropriate quotes in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Next one. Sase vidyara falajanya nisaya Krishna padame patme yatashita vittaraya. The perfect result of an education is the fixing of one's mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. Dich vijaya kari bha vidyari karya nahi. Ishvare bali ese vidya satya kahe. Conquering the world means by means of material education is not desirable. If one engages himself in devotional service, his education is perfected. Padekena loka Krishna bhakti jani bari. Seyadina hila tabe vidyaya ki kare. The purpose of education is to understand Krishna in his devotional service. If one does not do so, then education is false. And the last one. Tahara se bali dharma karma sadacharana ishvara se priti janme samata sabha. Being cultured, educated, very active and religious means developing natural love for Krishna. Everyone has dormant love for Krishna. And by culture and education, that has to be awakened. By culture and education. This is the purpose of this Krishna conscious movement. Once Lord Chaitanya asked Sri Ramananda Roy what is the best part of what the best part of education was, and Ramananda Roy replied, the best part of education is advancement in Krishna consciousness. So education means not theoretical knowledge, it's meant to be applied. The purpose of education is to understand Krishna. This is the purpose of the study of Bhagavad Gita and the study of Srimad Bhagavatam, to inflame our love for Krishna, to give us guidance to associate with Krishna, as Narada Muni does, and Sutta Goswami, and Sukadev Goswami, so that we get guidance, association, and purification. So Narada Muni is preaching here to King Prachinabarisat to give up these fruitive sacrifices, give up fruitive activities, give up to gain something else. Something else you are wanting to gain will bring no satisfaction. And he concludes this section by saying, can someone read text 51?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
One who is engaged in devotional service has not the least fear in material existence. This is because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Super Soul and friend of everyone. One who knows this secret is actually educated, and one thus educated can become the spiritual master of the world. One who is an actually bona fide spiritual master, representative of Krishna, is not different from Krishna.
Mm-hmm. So what is to fear if the powerful Lord in your heart cares for you? The question. The spiritual master as the external manifestation, and in the heart they give the same instruction. Text 52. Someone can read 52.
The great saint Narada continued, O great personality, I have replied properly about all that you have asked me. Now hear another narration that is accepted by saintly persons and is very confidential.
Mm-hmm. So Narada Muni just told the story of Puranjan. It is quite long and quite dramatic. The perfect situation, a king and a beautiful wife who helps him with his enjoyment, with so many children, etc. It's all crushed. But now, because King Prachinabarisat has not understood and is not quite ready to give up his fruitive activity, still he has sent his sons, the Prashetas, away. They were performing austerities, preparing to rule the kingdom. He was waiting for them to come back so that he could hand over to them, to tell them where all the gold is buried. But Narada Muni wants him to leave now. You leave now, he said. And indeed, he's going to do it. Because when one realizes this transcendental knowledge, he gives things from a different perspective. Even the universe appears to be insignificant. He wants him to leave now. He told a long story about King Puranjan, but now he's going to tell a short story with a short explanation. So I want you now in the next verses to listen carefully and picture what has been said. Picture what has been said in the allegory. Text 53. Yeah. So
Yeah,
please.
Mary. My dear king, please search out that deer who is engaged in eating grass in a very nice flower garden along with his wife. That deer is very much attached to his business and he is enjoying the sweet singing of the bumblebees in his garden. Just try to understand his position. He is unaware that before him is a tiger which is accustomed to living at the cost of another's flesh. Behind the deer is a hunter who is threatening to pierce him with sharp arrows. Thus, the deer's death is imminent.
So what chance does the deer have? He has been caught. His end is imminent. It's going to happen soon. Now, text 54. Yeah, can someone read?
My dear king, woman who is very attractive in the beginning, but in the end very disturbing, is exactly like the flower, which is attractive in the beginning and detestable at the end. With woman, the living entity is entangled with lusty desires, and he enjoys sex just as one enjoys the aroma of a flower. He thus enjoys a life of sense gratification from his tongue to his genitals, and in this way the living entity considers himself very happy in family life. United with his wife, he always remains absorbed in such thoughts. He feels great pleasure in hearing the talks of his wife and children, which are like the sweet humming of bumblebees that collect honey from flower to flower. He forgets that before him is time, which is taking away his lifespan with the passing of day and night. He does not see the gradual diminishing of his life, nor does he care about the superintendent of death who is trying to kill him from behind. Just try to understand this. You are in a precarious position and are threatened from all sides.
Thank you. There is nothing against women here. We are talking about souls. Everyone has been man or woman in the past, or both. Puranjan was a man and then he became a woman. The idea is that when we are trying to enjoy, the prime object of enjoying is the opposite sex. The living entity is in the mood of a Purusha. Purusha, Prakati, Stohi, Bhunte, Prakati, Jan, Gunan. He's trying to enjoy the material nature. Puranjan was thinking himself happy, and he did not notice that day by day, night by night, his time was stolen away, and his opportunity to become Krishna conscious, to develop his love for Krishna, was lost. This is the story of Puranjan, compressed, that very short. Just like if we took a man's life who lived for 80 years, and he was a very powerful, beautiful, famous, happily married man, perfectly successful, and you put it in a film of 1 minute or 30 seconds. You will see him to become old so quickly, and you will understand quickly that from the very beginning death was stalking him the whole time. He tells this to King Prachinabarishat because he wants him to give up his fruitive activity. Right now, he does not see that his life is diminishing. No one has a guarantee how long he is going to be in this body. One should be intelligent enough to see the future. That's the message here. Text 55. Someone can read.
My dear Guy, just try to understand the allegorical position of the deer. Be fully conscious of yourself and give up the pleasure of hearing about promotion to heavenly planets by fruitive activity. Give up household life, which is full of sex, as well as stories about such things, and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the mercy of the liberated souls. In this way, please give up your attraction for material existence.
So give up everything what's going to distract you from life's purpose. Get rid of the mood of enjoyer, because that will force you to take birth after birth and death after death. What should one do if he tries to become a devotee but sees that one has so many material desires? He has to learn to channel his material activities in such a way that he comes closer to Krishna and not further from Krishna. One cannot quickly renounce, but if one has strength, one should do it. All this should be done under the guidance of a Guru and Shastra and the Vaishnavas. Important is to hear about Krishna and become detached from the body concept of life. Become extremely detached from the body concept of life. That is meant, the body concept of life, which is meant to enjoy. Because that enjoyment will never happen. It is mythology. Materialists may say that Krishna, that is Hindu mythology. The materialists are those who believe in mythology. The materialistic dream for a happy life logically does not exist, because the tiger and the hunter is in every embodied soul. The question of a happy, idealistic life vanishes in a blink of an eye. That it's like we are here and the vulture is sitting on our head waiting. And that's the reality. Okay, heavy preaching. Text 56. The king replied. Who wants to read?
The king replied, My dear Brahmana, whatever you have said, I have heard with great attention, and considering all of it, have come to the conclusion that the acharyas, teachers who engaged me in fruitive activity, did not know this confidential knowledge. If they were aware of it, why did they not explain it to me?
Interesting question. So if we take the gradual path to become detached from the body concept of life, we can remember the hourglass. Hourglass is where the sand is shifting from one end to the other. But we don't know how much sand is left there. Everyone should keep that in mind. In other words, we should not waste time, because we don't know how much time we actually have. If we have a full life to 70, 80 or 90, or has to be very serious one has to be very serious to develop his attachment to Krishna, we should not use time. We should use our time very wisely. How does a wise person use his time? Srila Prabhupada could become angry when he would see old men engaging in frivolous sports, and he would say, why are they wasting their time? We are working so hard to tell them, don't waste your time. Use your time responsibly. Text 57. No, 50. Now, first one thing before we go to 57, that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says, but this type of preaching, which creates an aversion to the material world, is actually not pure bhakti. It is jnana mishra bhakti. In bhakti we deal with neutrality with regards to the material world. Lord Chaitanya came to teach us that this material world should not be renounced but used in Krishna's service. How can we renounce something which is not ours? How can we renounce the material world when it is not ours? We need to use it in Krishna's service because it belongs to Krishna. But we need to bring to our consciousness not to waste time and not get entangled in things. We need such preaching so that we can remember this. But for bhakti, neutrality is the perfect view of the world. Not that I want it, not that I hate it. No raga, no dvesha. Bhagavad Gita 3:34. Paripantina 2. Obstacles, raga and dvesha. Text 57. Yeah, can someone read 57?
My dear Brahmana, there are contradictions between your instructions and those of my spiritual teachers who engaged me in fruitive activities. Now I can understand the distinction between devotional service, knowledge, and renunciation. I had some doubts about them, but you have now very kindly dissipated all these doubts. I can now understand how even the great sages are bewildered by the real purpose of life. Of course, there is no question of sense gratification.
So that's a point here. Pure devotional service is very difficult to understand what actually pure devotional service is. That it is very rarely understood and very rarely achieved. Anyabhlasa sunyam, no desire than to please Krishna, no other desire. Text 58. So, can someone read?
The results of whatever a living entity does in this life are enjoyed in the next life.
So the result of one's work in this life one gets in the next life. This is a very heavy concept. And now King Prachinabarishad has a question. Someone read the question here.
The expert knowers of the Vedic conclusion say that one enjoys or suffers as a result of his past activities. But practically it is seen that the body that performed the work in the last birth is already lost. So how is it possible to enjoy or suffer the reactions of that work in a different body?
Okay. So now I will first go back to 38 and read the purport. A person generally does not know how one body is linked with another body. How is it possible that one suffers or enjoys the results of activities in this body in yet another body in the next life? This is a question the king wants Narada Muni to answer. How may one have a human body in this life and not have a human body in the next? Even great philosophers and scientists cannot account for the transferal of karma from one body to another. As we experience, every individual soul has an individual body. And one person's activity or one's body's activities are not enjoyed and suffered by another body or another person. The question is how the activities of one body are suffered or enjoyed in the next. Atheists want evidence for the resultant actions in the past. Therefore they ask, where is the proof that I am suffering and enjoying the resultant actions of past karma? They have no idea how the subtle body carries the results of the present body's actions down to the next gross body. The present body may be finished grossly, but the subtle body is not finished. It carries the soul to the next body. Actually, the gross body depends on the subtle body. Therefore, the next gross body must suffer and enjoy according to the subtle body. The soul is carried by the subtle body continuously until liberated from gross material bondage. So in the coming section, there's a description of the transmigration, which is the most detailed I've seen. It's that, of course, this is already mentioned in Bhagavad Gita chapter 8 in a few verses, how the soul transmigrates from one body to the next. That is there. That also in the 15th chapter, few verses there. That so that we will hear next in the next section, which will be on Monday. So now, are there any questions? We can first take some questions, and then we have a pause, and then we will speak about the preaching style of Narada Muni. Okay. There are no questions.
So Maharaj, sorry.
Yes.
So we could say that the gross body doesn't count for very much, because the pain and suffering or pleasure and enjoyment is actually experienced through the subtle body. So the most important is the subtle body. We can use it now preaching like that, right? But the gross body is just that matter in effect. And the experience of feeling and the senses and happiness or joy is experienced with the subtle effects of the mind and the senses.
Yes, the gross body is the effect of the subtle body, but the subtle body is surcharged with material desires, and that's where the soul has its say. That's a very important point. Therefore, making advancement in devotional service means purifying the subtle body and finally spiritualize it. That's true. Very good point. Shyamananda Prabhu, please.
Yes, it was said and you stressed that we need this preaching of Karma Mishra Bhakti, Jnana Mishra Bhakti, like, let's say, this creating an aversion to material enjoyment. And my question, maybe it belongs to the second part of the class today, is that we as devotees, when we preach like that, it might create like people don't like to hear that, definitely. So maybe we should concentrate on preaching like more on prayojana, like the goal of life, that we can love Krishna, and that's a positive approach. Then, or what? How do you see the importance of preaching to the people about the abominable nature of material world and of our desires to enjoy it?
Well, I will after the pause I will share a PowerPoint, and as a preacher, it's our duty to find out what are the needs and concerns of the people we are preaching to. And according to their needs and concerns and their situation, there are more points to consider. We can make a preaching strategy. And that is also what Narada Muni does. He sees King Prachinabarisat here. He's very much attached to these fruitive activities. And he's following the instructions of his Karmakanda teachers, like Sukracharya and so on. He's fixed on that, so attached, and he cannot give up the idea. And therefore, Narada Muni has to cut in his attachment. And but of course, it was gradual. First he tells all these stories of Puranjan and so on, And then King Prajnavarsa said, I did not understand it. Please explain it to me. I want to know it. So then he is acceptable because he wants to know, he's asking. And then he starts to explain and gradually becomes more heavy until he gets the point. He's an expert preacher that we cannot imitate that. Krishna warns about that in the Bhagavad Gita. One should not explain the secret of devotional service to those who are not austere, who are not my devotees, or not to those who are envious of me. But everyone has material desires is based on envy of Krishna. Then we don't have to preach to no one in this Kali Yuga. But the devotee wants to be more merciful than Krishna and still wants to bring them to devotional service. And that there's sometimes big reactions, but Krishna goes with the desire of his pure devotees. And that's very special. But we will hear more about that after the pause. Ajay Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj Pranam. The body has the sense organs, ear, nose, eyes, skin, touch, these are organs. Now, where are the senses and whose senses are these? The subtle body, mind, intelligence, false ego, chitta. We also have the senses. And the second question is, all the senses are in the soul, and they are seeing through the subtle body using the organs of the body. I'm seeing right now, I'm enjoying a nice beautiful sight, hearing beautiful katha. The hearing is not the organ, this organ is not taking it, enjoying it. Its enjoyment is happening, is it happening by the subtle body, or is taken by the soul?
Mm-hmm.
That's my question.
The experience is an experience through material nature, through the mind. The experience of seeing is practically in the mind. That it's in the subtle body that makes it work. Yeah. Therefore, it's so important to see ourselves as the observer. That because the senses are not our senses, the body is not ours. It's all rented, mirvar karma. It's Krishna's. It's the soul getting a material experience through the mind. But we identify so much with the mind, we think that's us, that experience, that's me. And that's caused by the heart knot of attachment. This heart knot, Janti, it is in the Bhagavatam that this heart knot of attachment has to be broken by removing this influence of passion and ignorance. Passion and ignorance are the material energies that make everything work in the material world. And makes us identify with this mind. Passion is based on lust. Lust makes one identify with the body and so on. So, Mamsya Vyabhicharana Bhakti Yorana Sivati Saratan Samatichitam Brahmavibhaya Kulpata. You perform devotional service and you see Krishna acting. And before you do something, you think, what does Krishna want? And then when you do something, you know I'm not doing it. I'm only desire, and you see how Krishna does it through your body and your senses. That's advanced vision. That is Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmana Gavhasni. One sees the super soul in action who factory controls. But if one becomes advanced in devotional service, one sees Krishna every moment like that, acting. That, and you never forget the Krishna factor. That's the point. And we don't think ourselves the only doer, because we still do things, the karta, as with desire. So we are very careful with our desires.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. Advaita Krishna, please.
Yes, just a small comment, not too long, Maharaj. It's just interesting how when we're preaching to especially Hindu community people, and they're always doing fruitive activities and doing yajnas and so many procedures and worshipping different demigods. And if you preach Bhagavad Gita and then come to understand karma, they come to understand the effects of births and rebirths, and then also how they can be reborn, and understand the subtle effects of, everything that is carried in the mind and the senses in the subtle body. They always come to this conclusion in the end. Like this 56 was very, very interesting. Immediately, like with the preaching of Narad Muni, Prachina Borisa said, I think I have been taught wrong.
Yeah.
And I think this happens to a lot of times, and the Hindu people always come to understand, oh, I've been taught wrong by the Pandits and by the Brahmins. I've been taught wrong.
Yeah, true. That's
very relevant. I saw that was very interesting. That's 56, Maharaj.
That's a good point, but you have to be careful because you will get in trouble with the Pandits.
Yes.
Smarta Brahmins. Good, thank you. So we will now have a pause for, till it is now 6:33, 6:45. We resume again. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Hare Krishna. So we are continuing. We will speak about how to preach according to the audience. That this is a part of a presentation of one session of many sessions on preaching strategies, and I presented that before sannyas candidates, how to train them how to preach that, but it's useful for all of us. So if we want to spread Krishna consciousness to people outside, there's a first level of preaching. We can preach to people outside and try to get them to our programs. We can preach to congregation and try to get them to get initiation. We can train them for that. And those who are initiated, we can preach to them and try to help them to become more committed and become an instrument in the preaching of Krishna consciousness. This preaching strategy is set by Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita. Matmana bhavamat bhakto machimam namaskari. Manmana, the first thing is help people to think of Krishna. And if they think of Krishna, Manmana, Bhavamat Bhakto, they will become devotees. Then we have to explain how to worship Krishna, Machai, Mam Namaskar, and giving respect to Krishna. So that's our preaching strategy. That's the first part of it, because Krishna goes further. Then he says you have to surrender, follow my instructions. And then he says you have to, when we explain this knowledge to my devotee, is very dear to me, then we have to preach. So different levels Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, and that's our basic strategy. But if we preach, we must know what is our target audience. Who is receptive for Krishna consciousness? What are they interested in? How can we attract them? And how can we make them to attend our programs? So I will just, during 10 minutes, share a few of the essential points here. And then we can see how Narada Muni preaches in different situations. His preaching towards Dhruva Maharaj was different. Dhruva Maharaj wanted to do austerities, and Narada Muni said, okay, do your austerities, but chant this mantra and look and meditate on the deity at the same time, but do your austerities. That then King Prachinabarishat was a different situation. He had to get him to stop all his materialistic activities. But he was also preaching to Mrigari the hunter, and he gave him he asked only to Mrigari the hunter. This is in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Please give me a favor. Do me a favor. And Mrigari said, what do you want? Do you want some deerskins? I have nice deerskins. I want to give to him. And Narada Muni said, no, you should kill. If you kill animals, kill them completely. Don't let them suffer. And he gave him a vision for what was waiting him in the future. Anyway, that was another kind of preaching. Different kinds of preaching. Narada Muni. But first we have to find a target audience. Who is interested in Krishna consciousness? That Srila Prabhupada had a target audience. All the hippies in America, they were ready. They had already renounced in a certain way. And they were fertile ground. Which section of society is receptive for our message? 3 points which are important here. People in transition, like you have college students, they are in a transition of their life. After college, marrying, working, that's different. But also people under tension, people who are in a crisis in their lives. They are also good people to preach to. So they are looking for stability. And then when you know what kind of people you want to preach me, you need a program according to the people you are preaching to. And I just give you a few examples. This year is in London. This was in 75-79 at the Bhaktivaibhava manor. Mostly were Western devotees in the beginning, no people from Hindu background, but they started to attract these Hindus, the youth, especially the youth, by making a Mahabharat youth club. And they had weekly programs in areas where the where many Gujaratis were. And in these areas, what they did, they had drama, that they performed Ramayana or other drama, and they had kirtan, but kirtan in modern style. Everyone could bring his instruments and so on. And they had discussions, but animated discussions that nicely guided. And by that, many Gujarati youth were attracted. And some of them, and they are still there, about 5, 6, up to 10 even, they joined the ashram. And then we got in trouble because all these parents start to complain. But that was a way to attract this Gujarati youth. That's one way. Then here, college programs. So it's important to know what are they seeking, what can we offer them, what are their interests, their needs, and preach according to their expectations, what they expect, like, according to their interest, and connect it with Krishna consciousness. That's also yoga events. Young people are into mantra yoga and yoga, and use that as a stepping stone. Here, Lord Chaitanya, he also preached according to the audience, to the receptivity. This is in Chaitanya Charitamrita. When he was in Varanasi, Benares, so he was staying in the house there with Chandrasekhar, and I forgot the name. But anyway, in the beginning, the first time when he came to Varanasi, all these Mayavadis, they were criticizing him. But then a few chapters later in Bhagavad Gita, then we see that a Brahmin from Maharashtra invited Lord Chaitanya, and invited them on behalf of these Mayavadi sannyasis, and that they wanted to meet him. And it was a much more favorable situation. And then Lord Chaitanya agreed, and he met Prakashananda Sarasvati, and we know he converted all these Mayavadis. But the first time he did not preach to them. Also, Prabhupada, he was preaching to the hippie counterculture. Counterculture. So they saw that the materialistic lifestyle of their parents did not make them happy. And they wanted a change. Of course, their ideas of change were not so good, but when they came in contact with Krishna consciousness, they immediately accepted. So that was a very fertile ground. Yes. And then, of course, we must make a strategy. And what's important in making a strategy for these audiences, first is we have to study our target audience. What kind of people are they? What are they seeking for? What are their needs? We have to do a scan, as a research. That, like, how do you do that? I remember, this is the Bhaktivedanta manor where they had great festivals every year. That it's an occasion to speak with people. Why do you come to the festival? What attracts you? What did you like the most? That and then you get to know what attracts them. Like here, at such festivals, we did that in Leicester. There we had a Bhagavad Gita drama. Everyone at the festival could see the drama. The drama was repeated, was 20 minutes, and every hour it was repeated. And every hour, every session, that the whole tent was full. And when people came out of the tent, we asked them, are you interested in following a Bhagavad Gita introductory course? That and many signed up. That and then from that group we invited them. They followed the course, which was also very practical, a visit to the manor, the temple, so many things. That and from the 100, a few finally became a devotee from the 100 who signed up. So it's a good way to know what do they want. You can ask them questions when they have seen the drama. That, of course, outreach programs, different programs for different audiences. That and that's an important point. That these are the college students at Jalpati. That these different programs. We have book distribution, of course. That we can attract people by cooking courses. Some feel interested by that, and tell them about karma-free food and that, and it's apply the teachings of Bhagavad Gita to people's lives. We must become specialized in that. Like here, I got that in America, the devotees are distributing that. These are all the benefits of chanting Hare Krishna. It gives you freedom, knowledge, happiness, love. So we communicate that with people and get them to chant that to those who are attracted to come to our festivals. So we can use drama festivals to connect with people. So that's the beginning. But if we look at people's lives, if we hear from people, why, what's their interest, what's their need, we should also be aware of the barriers. That only my religion is a true religion, impersonalist, idol worship. We have to be careful to all this cultural or various culture gaps, different ways of dressing for an unknown culture. That fear from fundamentalist religions. It's too strange. Fear of entering a dangerous sect. It's all mythical. That and then we should preach carefully, very carefully, to remove these barriers. That is part of our strategy. So I just shared it quickly with you, but these are the 3 points which are important to preach to new people. This is only one level that I explain here. Preaching to new people. But you have also preaching to congregation, preaching to committed devotees, that to engage them in the mission and so on. These are other kinds of preaching, but first 3 things to remember. Find out who is receptive to Krishna consciousness and how to reach them and what's the strategy we use. And then make a strategy and start preaching to them. So we see Narada Muni, he did the same thing. That of course he didn't have to find the target audience, Krishna brings them on. But it chooses a certain format how to preach. And for King Prajnaparishad was heavy preaching. But that we cannot do to everyone. We have to look at the audience. And then find a preaching strategy which is suitable and effective. And what's the best way? Look to ways others have done it successfully and adopt the suitable strategies. So I just wanted to share this with you. Do you think that was helpful? Any comments?
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Okay.
We normally don't spend time thinking about the audience. We just say standard plans and we just go apply.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Maharaj. This was very helpful. I just completed a teacher's training course of the VTE, and one of the things that was new to me, although I'm a teacher for a long time, actually, in the worldly. In my profession, it was new to me that it is very much stressed there that first you think about what you want to achieve. First you think about your aim, and then you define goals, you define objectives. And it was also very much clear in that course that actually this is how not only Krishna but Prabhupada also did it. Like he didn't just go to America and did something. He exactly understood the needs of his audience, and he tried to address them where they are, and he succeeded in exactly fulfilling their needs. And if we want to be successful in any endeavor, if it's a small lecture or if it's a big endeavor, you have to really find out where people are, and then find out a strategy, and then fulfill their needs, try to fulfill their needs with what we have as devotees.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I've been now for many years, I'm also helping the Bhaktivedanta students from the VHG especially, how to make their presentations and so on. And of course, normally they must have done the TTC to do that. But it's very important to have an aim and objectives in your preaching. What do I want to reach with my preaching? And that's always practical, how to bring that in practice. You have a spiritual techniques, how to bring that in practice and explain that more deeply. And then our preaching will be effective, because otherwise just sharing things and then we forget it afterwards. That's it. Also there must be some experience that because and ask your audience, try to connect with them and get their attention and their reciprocation, their participation. I remember Bhaktitirtha Maharaj in a seminar saying, if you hear something, if you read something, you remember maybe 10% after that. If you read and hear it at the same time you speak, it will go deeper. But when you hear and you participate, you get about 50% of the learning instead of 10-20%. It's important to get participation, and it's an art and it's a challenge. As a sannyasi, I'm preaching in so many places, and every time another audience. And you have to first find out what is this audience, at what level are they? What can I contribute here? Yeah. So it's a learning that. Can we get this PowerPoint? Well, I must say it's it's part of a PowerPoint I showed, and there are many. But I will discuss that with the secretary, and because we are still improving it, and there are different levels. I personally have no problem with sharing it, but we'll let you know. Good. Thank you, and I look forward to see you next week, Monday. Then we will continue with the fourth part of this important chapter. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Jai Prabhupada.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.